Hey guys, welcome back. So today I had a really productive day and sat through an entire 2 hours and 43 minutes of the committee hearing channel of the United States Senate Chips for America, which is the Chips Act.
To talk about developing next generation technology for innovation.
If you're not familiar with that, in my honest opinion, I really think that because of this Chips Act, which is going to be a federal funding of $52 billion going into the hands of these semiconductor companies such as Intel, Micron, and a whole bunch of other ones in the United States.
For your support for funding the Chips for America Act. Every aspect of human existence is becoming digital, and everything digital runs on semiconductors.
That is supposed to benefit the taxpayers, because obviously anything from the federal government is coming from the taxpayer. That's where all this money is coming from to fund these companies in order to bring the manufacturing of semiconductors back into the United States. How does this concern us? It concerns us in many, many ways. Well, because one, the television, your computer screens, your computer chips, your GPUs, hard drives, you name it, medical devices, cars, trucks, and the list keeps on going and going and going. So why am I bringing this up, and how is it relevant to crypto? Oh, it has a huge, huge impact on crypto. Why? Because it's going to drive the prices of everything that we're purchasing even higher. In the United States, only accounts for 12% of the manufacturing of chips from back in the day when it was about 40. So that was almost half. Now where does it sit? It sits a lot in Europe and Asia. Now, when I say Europe and Asia, Europe only has a smaller percentage. Majority of the 88% is sitting in Asia.
America's share of global semiconductor manufacturing is 12% today. Where's the other 88%? Let's just sort of summarize what we've learned so far.
Thank you. The largest portion is in Asia, right, led by Taiwan, Korea, China, and Japan. So approximately 80% is in Asia, and about 9% in Europe, and about 12% in the U.S.
There are some huge, huge differences and disparity between the chip manufacturings in the United States and the rest of the world. So why all of a sudden this is coming back? I want to give my 2 cents on this and why I feel like GPUs, hard drives, CPUs, all that stuff is going to go up in price dramatically if this is acted on. Meaning if they're going to take tax dollars from us to fund billion-dollar companies such as Intel and Micron, that's already positive, already generating income on their own, which is not a small percentage. This was the video that I was watching. The hearing entitled Developing Next Generation Technology for Innovation. Coverage begins at 10 a.m. I sat through the entire 2 hours and 43 minutes that this went through, and it was very informative, but at the same time, I felt that it was very contradicting to why a lot of these chip manufacturers were sent overseas to begin with. In my honest opinion, this is what happened. In 2009, or around that time of June, a lot of the e-waste that the Americans were producing, such as old computers, parts, refrigerators, anything that you can think of, was being shipped overseas. Why? Because the United States didn't want to deal with it. And they were getting money for the waste that they were sending. What was your garbage was making somebody money when they sent this out, because they were either selling, there was copper on it, there was gold on it, and they had all these extra chips. This is what happened in China. Actually, China has stopped doing this, but for the longest time, they were separating parts, chips. You see all these like aluminum casing, you can probably find ATX motherboards, ATX cases, micro, mini, anything. Everything and anything that's here is all here, and you actually see little tiny people sitting over there and just picking out the parts. Crazy, right? No one would have thought back in 2009 when the United States was saying, oh, all our waste is going overseas, we don't have to deal with it anymore. But now all of a sudden, so in 2009 all the way maybe like 20 plus years later, they're saying this is a problem because a lot of the manufacturing are all overseas and there's not enough in the United States. Now, and they're asking for federal funding. Now, I don't agree with this. These were the panelists on the talk right now. Was Patrick Gelsinger. He is the CEO of Intel. There was also the CEO of Micron, which was Sanjay Maratha. Just to get a quick glimpse of how much these individuals or the company has been making for the last year, just within the 1 year time span. They made revenue of $28.45 billion. And this is for Micron. Intel was making $79 billion the year of 2021. I say this because it's relevant. Why is it relevant? We have the 10 largest semiconductor companies listed here: Intel, Samsung, Taiwan, semiconductor manufacturer, SNK, Broadcom, Qualcomm, Micron, Applied Materials Job. I actually never, AMJ, I don't actually know that one. NVIDIA Corporation and Texas Instrument. Now, mind you, in 1967, Texas Instrument developed the first electronic desktop calculator. And obviously, from that time on, everything has progressed as far as technology. You can see here like a very high level timeline. You see the Nintendo, you see the clocks, you see the transistor radios. Things got progressively better and better. But right now, these chip manufacturers such as Intel and Micron is fighting, not just them two, actually a bunch of them in the United States, is trying to get this act passed. They're trying to get funding for $52 billion taxpayer money to get into this. Did a video way back about Intel building a plant out in Akron, Ohio to house about almost 3,000 new jobs, and they're bringing manufacturing back into the United States. Yes, it's a good thing that you can easily access a lot of these chips if it's locally, if it's made locally. But then there is also other consideration. Did you know chip manufacturing uses about 1.4 billion gallons of water to make these chips? Why is water relevant to making? Because it has to be, it's there, it's relevant. Energy usage, water, a lot of factors come into making micro semiconductor chips. And that's the reason why a lot of these companies from the very start, let's say 20, 30 years ago, started pushing out to Asia and Europe to make these things because labor was cheap. Now they're all of a sudden, they're concerned about security, cybersecurity risk in these chips, memory chips, semiconductor chips, CPU chips, whatever chips that sits in your television, your car, your trucks, everything that we buy as retailers, okay? So there is a huge concern if this gets passed because yes, it brings jobs back to the United States. You have a high usage. Remember, now all of a sudden, if you bring this back, now the carbon footprint is going to be larger again. Why? Because you're running more energy, you're producing more chemical waste, and that has to be addressed as well. Now, all of a sudden, that isn't all so green. So can you imagine if you lived in an area where one of these semiconductor factory was planned to be built, all of a sudden, you're living next to a chip manufacturer. Now, is that good for you or bad for you? I'm not sure, right? Because one, there's possibly a higher radiation going on over there, higher usage of water. All right, so the other things that will be positive is that there's more jobs, right? People will be paying taxes. The government will be making more money. You don't have to rely on overseas shipping to get these products going out to the consumers. But there's a bad side to that too. Now, all of a sudden, real estate prices are going up. You can't afford to live over there because it's booming over there. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Maybe to some individuals who can't afford it. Remember, these CEOs of these companies are making millions of dollars. Now, the average 9-to-5 worker who's building these chips, maybe not so much. The engineers, all right, that could be debatable. Blue collar jobs, and obviously they will be part of the union, and just a lot of factors come into taking money from the federal government. There was a great question proposed by one of the Senate members, and they were asking, like, what is the return if we give you all $52 billion of taxpayer money? What is that incentive, and how is the taxpayer going to benefit from that?
All four of you have run successful businesses, and when you go to your boards and you say, I want to make an investment, you say, or what they say to you is, what are you going to get back? How much cash do you get back? You don't go then say, hey, I'm going to get a bunch of revenues. That doesn't help you. You don't say, hey, it's going to have a great economic impact, or gosh, I'm going to add 1,000 jobs. They say, if you're going to invest certain dollars, you're going to get something back. And so I was disappointed that nobody's come back and said, you guys want us to spend $52 billion, but nobody comes back and says, okay, for $52 billion, the taxpayers of this country will get a certain dollar back. None of you, I think, would, if you were the fiduciary, you would say, I'm going to do it without getting a return. So if you have something like that, I'd love to see it because I have not seen it.
It's not like they're going to be getting a return. Are they going to be getting something back in their pockets? No, it really isn't, and they couldn't answer that. None of the chip CEOs could even answer. Between Intel and Micron, none of them could answer that question because it just wasn't there. You don't know. They were asking, like, what kind of returns are you going to... They were projecting, like, maybe in the next 30 years, they could bring back a good percentage of the chip manufacturers, semiconductor chip manufacturing back into the United States. Because if they don't, they will lose out on the opportunity to keep the United States on top of technology, because then they're going to rely on the entire Asia and Europe market to build these things, and they will have nothing to produce on their own. And the reason why this became such a bigger topic is because, one, the sanctions in Russia. And what they were saying is Russia can invade Ukraine. So what happens when China invades Taiwan? And if that happens, then all the chip manufacturing percentage between Taiwan and China becomes one. And who controls that? China. And what they were trying to get at was China has these different labor laws. They may not be on the same tier as the United States when it comes to equal pay and the conditions, the working conditions, and this and that, which is really understandable. You bring the jobs back to the United States. But mind you, if you do that, you're paying workman comp, you're paying all these union dues, and you're doing all these fees. Your GPU, your hard drive, your CPU, every component of your PC will be practically double the price of what it is now that you're paying for it when you walk into a Best Buy, Micro Center, order a new egg, Amazon, eBay. Everything will just be more expensive. Now, that's just not computer stuff. Now, we crypto guys would know the computer stuff would be expensive. GPUs don't need to be in a shortage, manufacturing it for it to be expensive. It's just expensive because they're trying to use it to mine crypto. Now, that's a whole different topic, right? But remember, you're going to be paying more for your car. You're going to be paying more for the Nest or the internet cameras that you have. Every little thing. Your iPhone will probably double the price of what it is. But there's a reason why it was sent overseas to begin with, because the manufacturing and the companies in the United States did not care about the working conditions in Asia and in Europe and how they were treated. As long as they were profiting and making money, obviously that was the ultimate goal for any corporation, especially the large ones such as Intel and Micron. Now, I point these two out because those were the two top guys that were actually sitting in the Senate hearing. And of course, there were other individuals. So my highlights were just that, if the chip manufacturers come back to the United States, it does benefit a lot of people. They give them jobs. A few of the things that was mentioned was funding going back into like community colleges and schools to educate these individuals to get into that field of building semiconductors.
Just last week, we announced a $100 million initiative, right, around our Ohio plant, specifically in this area, right, across the skills, from community colleges and, the most basic entry-level manufacturing, from focus on K through 12, STEAM and STEM educational programs, reaching into, communities that haven't necessarily been affected, such as underrepresented minorities.
Or chip manufacturing. It's a job skill at that point, sort of like a trade, Schools don't teach that right now. So those are the kind of funding these companies are trying to initiate with the Senate to agree and be on the same page. They're fearful. Now, one thing I didn't agree in this conversation when it was going on was that it was mentioned that, because Asia or these other foreign countries, they kept referring it to foreign countries. Obviously, the other foreign countries will refer to the United States as a foreign country. But the foreign countries, anything outside the United States is a foreign country. They were saying that anyone who's doing anything in the semiconductor business, their technology is growing. They were saying that these companies outside of the United States who has built these manufacturing of semiconductor chips has put a lot of their money into this way back when the United States decided to get rid of all their e-waste and their recycling stuff. In China, I know for a fact in China, because I've seen the articles and I grew up reading it and seeing it, that literally people would just sit there, because I knew someone in the United States that was recycling PC parts and sending it back to China, and they were literally ripping off the copper wires from every little thing. And the semiconductor little chips, they were unsoldering every single one of them because that could be reused. When they were doing that way back in the early 2000s, United States didn't care about it then. Like, why all of a sudden they're seeing that they're in a disadvantage, they're losing money, and I feel like these CEOs just want to get on the top hand of things again so they could get their million or their couple of $1 million bonuses at the end of the year because they did something great for the economy. Now, that's just my opinion on things. Possibly a deeper connotation to it. Maybe it's beneficial. I'm not sure, but I just know if this passes, we will be expected to pay a lot more going forward for any components that we buy, cars, trucks, everything, refrigerator, all the way down, because everything is an IoT, right? Internet of Things. Everything has an IP address. Everything is basically ran on a computer. I want to thank you guys for being here. I know this was a little different, but it kind of, you know, it's relevant in this space because this is the high level space of me, you know, sitting in front of the machine and mine Ethereum on my 6600 XTs. All right. Thank you guys for being here. Hit that like button if you like this video, and I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.